Okay, so NVDA had a record-breaking day. Towards the downside, it was gapping down in the pre-market because of the DeepSeek news we had over the weekend. It started out with a gap down of 7%, 8%, 10%, 12%, just did not stop. And at the lowest point, it was down 18% for the day. Which, if you think about it, is more than Netflix worth of market cap, more than $500 billion lost in market cap from NVDA in one day. I'm talking about the huge amount of money involved on the stock in one day is because as day trader, to capitalize on days like these, you need to understand the two sentiments, the two driving forces on days like these. And the two sentiments are hope and panic. As we go through this video, remember these two words, hope and panic, and you will be able to see how you can capitalize on both these sentiments. So now here's a monthly chart of NVDA. I'm going to break down the higher time frames and then I will tell you how to capitalize on the hope and panic emotion. So on the monthly chart, we can see that NVDA on this day was actually making a new 1 month low. The prior month low, which is the month of December, was 126.86, and this is an important level we need to consider whenever we are looking at such a major gap down, because when we are gapping down a lot, like 10%, 11%, don't just focus on the 1 minute chart. Look at the monthly chart and the weekly chart and see where people bought this stock and where people might ideally sell this stock and where the stop losses are going to be. Now, if you look at the weekly chart, on the weekly chart, we can easily see that the last time we were down here was around 16th of December. This week, the week starting 16th of December, we had a bounce from this 126.86. And then before that as well, this week, the low of this week is approximately 129.5. These are going to be important levels, guys, because these are the weekly and the monthly levels, and I'm going to tell you guys how to prepare a game plan around these levels. Now let's go on the daily chart and see what was happening. On this day, we can see that even if you look at the pre-market action, which is insane, like pre-market, I actually thought it's going to hold around 130, maybe above 130, but once it broke down under 130, there was no stopping. Like even the pre-market low was around 123, which if you think about it, was approximately, not exactly, down approximately 13.5% from the prior day close in the pre-market itself, which is insane. Like this stock is approximately $3.5 trillion, was $3.5 trillion worth of market cap. 13% gap down on a stock like NVDA is huge. Is huge for the stock market, is huge for the whole market in general. Now let's go back on the daily chart and try to understand the hope and panic sentiment, right? So a lot of these traders, these swing traders and long-term investors, they entered their position maybe at the hold of 127, 128, 130 is a good psychological level. And if you go based on the technicals, we can see prior resistance right here turned into support. If I just move it here, you guys can see this 127 is a major zone because we can see resistance right here and then resistance again, support around 127. We had a bit of choppy price action near 127, resistance near 127, support near 127. So 127 to 130 zone is going to be really important. So try to understand this. If we hold above 127, it's going to be hopeful for the long-term investors and swing traders for a push towards the upside, because they are like the stock is gapping down 15%. It's going to hurt a lot of long-term portfolios and a lot of swing traders. So for them, any signs of hope for a hold of 127 is good for them. But if it sells off under 127, it's going to create panic and all these traders will have to get stopped out because you don't know how long it can sell off for. It might even go towards $100. So you need to understand that a lot of stop losses are near 127 to 130 zone. And if we hold above 127, we might actually see a good push towards the upside because of the hope. And the other long-term investors, those who are waiting on the sidelines for a dip on the stock, they might buy it. But if you don't hold this 127, it's going to lead to panic. On this day, I spent 20 minutes in the pre-market webinar that we have for the Discord community to explain this exact process, because I don't want our members to get stopped out early in the market open and then miss out on the eventual push down or push up later in the day. So I told them that, okay, I had a platform issue of the open. This might be the fake push towards the upside within the first 2 minutes. I'm going to show you guys a 1 minute chart as I explained in the webinar. I spent so much time in the webinar drilling into the members that if it stays under 130, don't take calls. Don't buy it towards the upside. Don't, because it might sell off still. Like, don't take it towards the upside if it stays under 130. And that's exactly what happened. And we might see the panic kick in later in the day after the hope settles down. And that's what happened. If you guys want to join our community, the link will be in the description box below. We actually have a promo code which will be expiring the end of this month for 2025. Everything will be in the description box below. So now let's go back and take a look at the 1 minute chart and see what happened. Exactly, hope and panic. I'm going to explain these two sentiments again. Within the first 2 minutes, we had a fake push towards the upside. This is hope for the long-term investors and the swing traders that, okay, this is actually holding 127. So they might hold on to their position or they might even add to their position. And the other long-term investors, those who are waiting on the sidelines, they will be like, okay, let's enter the position. This might be a good dip around 127 for a push back to 150 in the next few weeks. Had a fake push towards the upside, but you guys, I'm going to show you guys my entries and exits. I never took it long. If it stays under 130, you don't have any business to take it long. And that's what happened. It caught a few of the day traders, those who thought it's going to push towards the upside. Swing traders, they added to their position right here. Long-term investors added. Then we saw a sell-off. Again, a push towards the upside, even on high volume. You guys can see all these hopeful traders for a push back towards 130, 140, 150. They entered their positions, but unable to sustain that move. You guys can see it's making lower highs. This high is lower than this high. This high is lower than this high. That means the buyers are not really strong. My first position was at 934 because you never know. We saw a fake push towards the upside, might as well just sell off right off the open within the first 5 minutes. So to capitalize on days like these, you have to take a few steps, and that's why you need to give yourself the leverage to take a few steps and don't reach your max stop loss within the first few minutes of the market open. Then my next trade was right here. I covered my first position with a loss of, I think, around $3,000. I took another position. But honestly, guys, like the premiums, if you traded options on this day, you guys know what I'm talking about. Even though I entered right here and exited right here, I still lost money on puts because the IV was so high after such a big gap down that the IV kept on creeping down, and that made me lose a lot of option premium. So even though I was on the right side of the trade, or maybe I exited at break even, I still lost money because the option premiums, they were losing a lot of value because the IV kept on coming down. And then we had this fake push towards the upside. A lot of retail traders, I know, they must have taken their position for a break towards the upside. But if you were part of our group, you did not, because I clearly mentioned you have no business to take it long if it stays under 130. Then eventually I saw that, okay, it's making lower highs. I started a small position. I had like 3 losses before eventually catching this push towards the downside. Then the biggest trade of the day was I took small position. I took 20 contracts right here on this candle, maybe 956, or maybe this candle 953, with the stop loss if it makes a new high, because it's been making lower highs. If we see this high lower than this high lower than this high, so if it makes a new high, we might even go for 130. I don't want to be a part of it. Started a small position. Eventually, you guys can see the panic kicked in. This volume was way higher. After the first 20 minutes, if you see a volume like this, which is even higher to the hope volume, this is the hope volume, this is the panic volume. The volume increased, the panic is starting to creep in. On this pullback, I added to my position. My first entry was right around here, around this 127 zone. Added to my position, caught this push down, and I made $10,000, $11,000 on this trade, which paid for the first 3 losses, eventually putting me approximately $3,500 green for the day. At one point of time, within the first 15 minutes, I was down $6,500 for the day. Now, instead of the 1-minute chart, let's take a look at the 5-minute chart and see what happened and try to explain and try to understand hope at panic again. This was hope. The first 10-15 minutes, hope for the long-term investors. A lot of retail traders, they entered their position. Day traders, they entered their position. Swing traders, they entered their position. But eventually, people who are holding on this push down, they are going to look for exits. So what happened? We had a push down. We tested the opening print. The opening print, I'm going to mark this level. This was the open on this day. We can see that this opening print, this was the open right here, held as resistance right here. All the hope is slowly going away. Like the hope is turning into panic. This hope right here, and people who have been holding for a long time, converted into panic, and then we had a nice sell-off. Then on this push up right here, I took another position. I missed out on this push down because I was actually making a reel, which I posted on my Instagram. You guys can go and follow me there. The link will be in the description box below. Then on this pullback, I took my puts position again. I took another puts position, small size, only 50 contracts. The trades I took off the open were like 100 contracts or something. The next position was another like 20 contracts and 100 contracts. And this trade was only 50 contracts because I knew that after being 6.5K red for the day, I was 3.5K green. So I was not willing to go back to red. Every trade is a risk to reward game. So I sized down on this trade. At no point I was red for the day again. And then I caught this small push towards the downside for the break under 120, making another $4,000. So overall for the day, I was up 7,000. Let's now take a look at my entries and exits. So here are my entries and exits for the day. I'm going to show you guys the actual screenshot screenshot of my interactive brokers, the actual trades I took with position sizing, because I explained that on my Instagram reel as well, that yes, you can make $7,000 by risking $30,000, which is going to be a bad trade, or you can make $7,000 by risking $2,000, which is going to be a good trade. So it's very important to understand the entries and exits, right? Yes, I could have made $20,000 had I held my position from, say, on this push down I held, and for the push up I was in a drawdown of like $30,000, and then eventually I end the day at $20,000 in the green. I can just post my PNL and say that okay, this was good trading, but it wasn't. If you were in a drawdown of $30,000 and then you end the day with $20,000 in the green, overall it's a bad trading day on your end. So you guys can see my entries and exits, and now let's take a look at my TradeZilla before we end this video. Here's my TradeZilla, Monday 27th of Jan. I took 6 trades, only 2 winners and 4 losers. That's the benefit, and that's the beauty of holding on to your winners and cutting your losers. The first 3 trades you guys can see red, $2,600, $800, $3,000, but the return on investment was only like 6% red, 4% red, and 7% red. But I'm going to show you, like if I open this trade, you guys can see that my entries and exits were at the right time. Like if you look at the chart and PNL, the chart of NVDA, I entered my position right here for puts. I covered my position before this candle closed. I covered the position around the bottom of this candle, because you guys can see the premiums all the way dropped to approximately 3.9, but my exit is at like $4 or something. So the premiums were losing a lot of value, and even you guys can see when it pushed back towards the upside, the premiums dropped a lot in value. So it even went at this high. You guys can see at 128, the premiums were holding, the puts were holding around 3.4. At 127.5, the premiums were holding around 2.9, which is lower than 3.4, even though the stock price is lower than the current price. So ideally, puts should be higher than 3.4, but they were losing a lot of value because of the IV drop, as I explained. And going back, I had 3 losses of the open. The next winner, I took 20 contracts and I added more contracts to my position. Let's take a look at the executions. As I told you, 20 contracts at 953, I started my position at the top right here, added to my position on this pullback, covered my position when it made this new high on the 5-minute chart, overall making $10,800 on this trade, which was only 23%. But again, like the premiums were not the best on NVDA. So if you lose 5, 6, 7%, and if you're making 20, 25%, it's pretty good considering it's NVDA and the premiums are not moving too well. Then I took this small AVGO trade, which was like a break-even trade, $21. And then the last trade on NVDA, you guys can see on this trade, I was also in a drawdown for a while. Honestly, not the best entry, but it never reached my stop loss. My stop loss was a hold back above 122, never held above 122. I got this push down, overall making $3,400 on this trade. So yeah, based on the percentage, not a huge day for me personally, but it's all about understanding the hope and panic emotion, and also how to keep your losers small so that 2 winners can put you nicely green for the day. Even though my win rate was really low, only 33% for the day, but I still ended up being nicely green for the day. So yeah, that's it. Hopefully this video helps you understand the 2 sentiments in the stock market, hope and panic. And if you guys like this video, give this video a thumbs up, because it helps out the channel a lot to grow and reach new traders out there. If you guys are new, subscribe to my channel. If you guys don't follow me on Instagram, the link will be in the description box below. I post a lot of good behind the scenes on Instagram as well. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.